Hello, my amazing children. This is Grandma Carla. I am back with Pippi Longstocking, and this book is by Astrid Lindgren, and we are reading Chapter 7, Pippi Goes to the Circus. The circus had come to the little town, and all of the children ran to their mothers and fathers to ask permission to go. Tommy and Annika did too, and their nice papa promptly gave them several lovely silver kroner. With the coins held tightly in their hands, they rushed off to find Pippi. She was on the porch with her horse. Busy twisting his tail into tiny braids, which she tied with red bows. "It's his birthday today. At least I think it is," she said, "and that is why he has to look nice." "Pippi," said Tommy, huffing and puffing because they had run so fast. "Pippi, do you want to go to the circus?" "I can do almost anything." "I can go to almost anything," said Pippi, "but I'm not sure whether I can go to a circus because I don't know what a circus is. Does it hurt?" "Don't be silly," said Tommy. "Of course it doesn't hurt. It's lots of fun, with horses and clowns and beautiful ladies walking on tight ropes." "But it costs money," said Annika, and she opened her little hand to see if the coins were still there. Her big shiny 2-krona coin and the 2 50-öre coins. "I'm as rich as a troll," said Pippi, "so I can always buy myself a circus. Although it might get a bit crowded if I'm going to have more horses. I can always stack up the clowns and those beautiful ladies in the laundry room, but it's going to be harder to find room for the horses." "Silly," said Tommy. "You're not supposed to buy the circus. Don't you understand? It costs money to go in and look." "Good gracious," cried Pippi, shutting her eyes. "It costs money to look? And here I go around staring all day long. Who knows how much money I've already spent on my staring?" After a while, she cautiously opened one eye and rolled it around. "I don't care what it costs," she said. "I just have to have a look." Finally, Tommy and Annika managed to explain to Pippi what a circus was. Then Pippi went to get several gold coins from her suitcase. After that, she put on her hat, which was a bit as big as a mill wheel, and then they hurried off to the circus. A big crowd had gathered around the circus tent, and there was a long line at the ticket window. Eventually, it was Pippi's turn. She stuck her head inside the window, stared hard at the nice old lady who was sitting there, and she said, "How much does it cost to look at you?" But the old lady was a foreigner, and she did not understand what Pippi meant. So she said, "Little girl, it cost 5 kroner for front seats and 3 kroner for seats in the back and 1 kroner for standing room." "All right," said Pippi, "but then you have to promise to walk the tightrope too." Now Tommy stepped forward and said that Pippi wanted a seat in the back. Pippi handed over a gold coin, and the old lady gave it a suspicious look. She even bit it to make sure it was real. Finally, she was convinced that the coin was made of real gold, and she handed Pippi a ticket. She also gave her a lot of silver coins and change. "What am I supposed to do with all of these horrid little white coins?" said Pippi, annoyed. "Why don't you just keep them? Then I can look at you twice instead of just once, from the standing room." Since Pippi absolutely refused to accept any change, the woman gave her a ticket for a front row seat instead. She also gave Tommy and Annika front row tickets, and they didn't even have to spend any of their own money. That was how Pippi and Tommy and Annika ended up sitting on fancy red chairs right next to the circus ring. Tommy and Annika kept turning around to wave at their classmates who were sitting much further back. "What a strange tent this is," said Pippi, looking around in surprise. "And I see that they've spilled sawdust on the floor. Not that I'm fussy about such things, but I do think it looks rather messy." Tommy explained to Pippi that every circus had sawdust on the floor. It was for the horses to run on. Up on the platform sat the circus band, which suddenly began playing a thundering march. Pippi clapped her hands wildly and jumped up and down in her chair with delight. "Does it also cost something to listen, or can we do that for free?" she asked. At that moment, a curtain was pulled aside from the performer's entrance, and the ringmaster, wearing a black coat and with a whip in his hand, came running in. Behind him came 10 white horses with red plumes on their tails. Then the ringmaster cracked his whip again, and all of the horses stood on their hind legs with their hooves up on the low wall surrounding the ring. One of the horses came to a halt right in front of where the children were sitting. Annika didn't like having the horse so close, and she shrank far back in her seat as she could. But Pippi leaned forward, lifted up the horse's front hoof, and said, "Glad to meet you. I bring you many greetings from my own horse. He has a birthday today, just like you, but he has bows on his tail instead of on his head." Luckily, Pippi let go of the horse's hoof before the ringmaster cracked his whip again, because then all of the horses hopped down from the low wall and went back to galloping. When the performance was over, the ringmaster bowed politely and the horses trotted off through the exit. The next moment, the curtain opened once again for a black horse, and on his back stood a beautiful lady wearing green silk tights. It said in the program that her name was Senorita Carmencita. The horse trotted around in the sawdust, and Senorita Carmencita stood calmly on his back, smiling. But then something happened. Just as the horse passed the spot where Pippi was sitting, something whooshed through the air, and that something was none other than Pippi. And there she stood on the horse's back, behind Senorita Carmencita. At first, Senorita Carmencita was so surprised that she almost fell off the horse. Then she got really angry. She started flailing her hands behind her to make Pippi jump off, but it did no good. "Calm down a couple of notches," said Pippi. "Surely you're not the only one who's allowed to have any fun. Other people have paid for a ticket too. I'm sure of that." Then Senorita Carmencita tried to jump off the horse, but again without success, because Pippi had a firm grasp around her waist. And then all of the spectators at the circus could not help laughing. They thought it looked so ridiculous to see the beautiful Senorita Carmencita held tight by a little red-headed girl who stood there on the horse's back with her big shoes, looking as if performing in a circus was the most natural thing in the world for her. But the ringmaster was not laughing. He gave a signal to his red-coated attendants to rush forward and stop the horse. "Is the show already over?" asked Pippi, disappointed. "Just when we were having so much fun." "You stupid child!" snarled the ringmaster through clenched teeth. "Get out!" Pippi gave him a distressed look. "What's going on?" she said. "Why are you so mad at me? I thought we were supposed to be having a good time." She jumped off the horse and went back to her seat, but then 2 big attendants came over to throw her out. They grabbed hold of Pippi and tried to lift her. They couldn't do it. Pippi sat absolutely still, and there was no way they could budge her from the spot, no matter how hard they tried. So they shrugged their shoulders and left. In the meantime, the next act had started. It was Miss Elvira who was going to walk the tightrope. She wore a pink tulle dress, and she had a pink parasol in her hand. Taking dainty little steps, she ran along the tightrope. She swung her legs and did all sorts of acrobatics. It looked so sweet. She even showed that she could walk backward on the slender rope. But then she came back to the small platform at one end of the tightrope and turned around. There was Pippi. "Quite a surprise, isn't it?" said Pippi with delight when she saw Miss Elvira's astonished expression. Miss Elvira didn't say a word. Instead, she jumped down from the tightrope and threw her arms around the neck of the ringmaster, who happened to be her father. And the ringmaster once again sent his attendants to throw Pippi out. This time, he sent 5 of them. But then all of the spectators in the circus started shouting, "Leave her alone! We want to see the red-headed girl!" And they all stamped their feet and clapped their hands. Pippi leaped onto the tightrope, and Miss Elvira's acrobatics were nothing compared to what Pippi could do. When she reached the middle of the tightrope, she stretched one leg high in the air, and her big shoe spread out like a roof over her head. She bent her foot forward slightly so that she could tickle herself behind one ear. The ringmaster was not at all pleased with Pippi performing in his circus. He wanted to get rid of her. That's why he sneaked over to release the mechanism that held the rope tight. He was sure that Pippi would come tumbling down. But she didn't. Instead, Pippi started the rope swaying. Back and forth swung the rope. Pippi swayed faster and faster, and then all of a sudden she stepped out into the air and landed right on the ringmaster's back. He was so startled that he began to run. "What a fun horse you are," said Pippi, "but why don't you have any tassels in your hair?" Now Pippi thought it was time to go back to Tommy and Annika. She climbed off the ringmaster's back and returned to her seat just as the next act was about to start. There was a slight delay because the ringmaster first had to go out and drink a glass of water and comb his hair. But then he came back in, bowed to the audience, and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, in a moment you will behold the greatest marvel in our time, the strongest man in the world, Strong Adolf, who is still undefeated. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Strong Adolf." And into the ring stepped a giant of a man. He was dressed in flesh-colored tights with a leopard skin wrapped around his waist. He bowed to the audience, looking very pleased with himself. "Just look at those muscles," said the ringmaster as he squeezed Strong Adolf's arm, where the muscles bulged like bowling balls under his skin. "And now, ladies and gentlemen, now I have a truly grand offer to make. Who among you will dare attempt a wrestling match with Strong Adolf? Who will dare defeat the world's strongest man? I'll pay 100 kroner to whoever can beat Strong Adolf. 100 kroner. Keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. All right? Who will step forward?" No one stepped forward. "What did he say?" asked Pippi. "And why is he speaking Arabic?" "He said that whoever can beat that huge man will get 100 kroner, said Tommy. "I could do that," said Pippi, "but I think it would be a shame to beat him because he looks so nice." "Oh, I'm sure you couldn't do it anyway," said Annika. "He's the world's strongest man after all." "Man? Yes," said Pippi, "but I'm the world's strongest girl. Keep that in mind." In the meantime, Strong Adolf was lifting huge iron weights and bending thick iron bars in half to show how strong he was. "So, ladies and gentlemen," shouted the ringmaster, "is there really no one who wishes to earn 100 kroner? Am I really going to have to keep the money all for myself?" he said, waving 100 kroner note in the air. "No, I really don't think so," said Pippi, and she climbed over the low wall and into the ring. The ringmaster flew into a rage when he caught sight of her. "Get out! Get lost! I don't want to see you!" he snarled. "Why do you always have to be so unfriendly?" said Pippi reproachfully. "All I want to do is fight Strong Adolf." "This is no place for jokes," said the ringmaster. "Get out of here before Strong Adolf hears how shameless you are." But Pippi walked right past the ringmaster and over to Strong Adolf. She grabbed his big hand and gave it a hearty shake. "All right, shall we have a little tussle, you and I?" she said. Strong Adolf looked at her, uncomprehending. "In 1 minute, I'm going to start," said Pippi. And she did. She took a firm grip on Strong Adolf's waist, and before anyone knew what had happened, she had him down on the mat. Strong Adolf leaped to his face bright red. "Hooray for Pippi!" shouted Tommy and Annika. All of the spectators in the circus heard them, and then they all too shouted, "Hooray for Pippi!" The ringmaster was sitting on the low wall, and he was wringing his hands. He was angry. But strong Adolf was even angrier. Never in his life had he experienced anything so awful. Now he was certainly going to have to show this red-headed little girl what sort of man strong Adolf really was. He rushed at her and grabbed her around the waist, but Pippi stood there as steady as a rock. "You can do better than that," she said, trying to encourage him. But then she pried herself loose from his grip, and in an instant, strong Adolf was once again lying on the mat. Pippi stood next to him waiting, and she didn't have long to wait. With a howl, he got to his feet and again came storming towards her. "Tiddly-pom and piddly-dee," said Pippi. All of the spectators at the circus stamped their feet, tossed their caps in the air, and shouted, "Hooray for Pippi!" When strong Adolf came rushing at her for the third time, Pippi lifted him high in the air, and holding her arms straight up, she carried him around the ring. Then she put him back down on the mat and held him there. "All right, my dear man, I think we've had enough of this for now," she said. "It's not going to get any more fun than this, that's for sure." "Pippi is the winner! Pippi is the winner!" shouted all the spectators at the circus. Strong Adolf slunk away as fast as he could, and the ringmaster was forced to go over and hand Pippi the 100-kroner note, even though he looked as if he would rather swallow her whole. "Here you are, my dear," he said. "Here you are, 100 kroner. "What's this?" said Pippi scornfully. "What am I supposed to do with this piece of paper? Go ahead and fry herring in it if you like." And she went back to her seat. "This is a very long circus," she said to Tommy and Annika. "I wouldn't mind a little cat nap, but wake me up if you need my help with anything else." And then she leaned back in her seat and instantly fell asleep. And there she lay, snoring as the clowns and the sword swallowers and the contortionists performed their tricks for Tommy and Annika and all of the other spectators at the circus. "But I really think Pippi was the best of all," Tommy whispered to Annika. And that was quite a circus adventure. So let me show you all of the pictures. Okay, the first picture is just a picture of the big tent. Okay, so a picture of the big tent, and then the next picture is a picture of the ringmaster cracking his whip. And then here's a picture of Pippi behind the lady on the horse, Senorita Carmenita or something like that. And look how fancy the horse is with all of the plumes. But the Senorita does not look very pleased. Then here's a picture of Miss Elvira when Pippi gets on top of her tightrope with her. She didn't like that much either. And then here's a picture of strong Adolf, and he has big muscles, but not as big as Pippi's. And that is the end of chapter 7, and this is Grandma Carla, and I love you.